Hey everybody, as the poetry exam is just now about a month away or 4 weeks away, I thought it would be helpful for me to post this video. I've been getting a lot of questions and a lot of emails from you guys, tweets, that sort of thing, saying that you find the poetry particularly difficult and can I, do videos on this cluster and this poem and that poem. And I just want to share something with you that I think will help you with your analysis and understanding of poetry. I'm working on the moment, I've been spending quite a bit of time this week working on this poem, Ozymandias or however you want to say it, by Percy Shelley. And as I've been analysing this poem, some interesting things have come to mind which I thought I'd share with you because they'll be useful in general. One of the things that sets the top students apart from other students when it comes to poetry is to analyse structure and form and not just language. So what most people do when they're writing about poems is they read the poem, they understand the poem, and they pick out some key words that seem to be important. Like the word colossal in this poem or the word wreck. And they write about the effect of that word and essentially sort of complete some language analysis, which is very similar to, let's say, questions 2 and 4 in the higher tier English language exam. And that is adequate, but it's not going to get you the highest marks on its own simply because that's what most people do. And a very good friend of mine is an examiner on the English literature poetry exam, and she was telling me that to hit the top marks you really are looking to do something different, and quite often if you write about the structure or the form you're naturally going to do that. So I'm studying this poem Ozymandias, and it's a poem, there's a full analysis coming soon, next week, a nice 30-40 minute A-star analysis of this poem. But to give you a couple of pointers that will help you with all poetry, this is a poem about power and about how people with power think it's going to last forever, but it doesn't, and kind of empires fall and things move on and you're forgotten and that sort of thing. And I understood that, and I read the poem and I got it, but I kind of thought, well, what is there to say beyond very basic language analysis? And that's where looking at the structure and form has really helped me. Because I was looking at the form and I worked out that this poem is a sonnet. Now, a sonnet is a love poem. It comes from 13th century Italy, made famous, though, by 14th century Italian poet Petrarch, as following certain rules, including having what is called an octave, where the first 8 lines of the poem present a problem, and a sestet, where the last 6 lines of the poem solve the problem. And this was then taken on by Shakespeare, who developed made famous what is now known as the Shakespearean sonnet, which has a specific rhyme scheme of A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. And it sort of took what Petrarch did and just sort of developed it. So why is that important? Well, when we look at this poem, there are elements of both of those. So just like the Petrarchan sonnet, this sonnet does have an octave and a sestet. So the octave, the first 8 lines, present details about the powerful Ozymandias and tell us all about him. But the sestet then changes, there's a twist, and it focuses on how that power has disappeared. So in terms of the octave and the sestet, it follows the Petrarchan sonnet rules. However, there are elements of this poem which follow the Shakespearean sonnet rules. The rhyme scheme, for example, at the start is A, B, A, B. So that's following the Shakespearean sonnet rules. But then something different happens again, and it develops a totally new rhyme scheme, which isn't Petrarchan, it isn't Shakespearean, it's something new and different, and it ends up with an A, B, A, B, C, D, C, E, D, E, F, E, F rhyme scheme. Now, why is that important? Well, if we look at it like this poem is about those with power and how that power fades away and passes away and nothing lasts forever. And look at what this sonnet has done. It started with elements of a Petrarchan sonnet from the 14th century Petrarch, the sort of beginning model of the sonnet. It's modernised to the Shakespearean sonnet, the 16th century model, and then it's taken to a new stage of a totally new form of sonnet, which doesn't follow those rules at all. And it seems to me that the poet is deliberately using the form of the poem to reflect the theme of the poem, which is that power doesn't change, that it moves on and nothing is eternal. Because even in this poem, it's moved from the historical to the more recent to a new one that is completely, at this point, undefined in terms of sonnet forms. So the varying use of the sonnet form in this poem that refuses to stick with one dominant form but moves to another one and then something totally different reflects how power refuses to stick to one person but actually moves on to someone else, and then after that will move on to somebody else again. Now, the reason I share this in this video and not just in my analysis of this poem is that actually close analysis of the form and looking at the structure really helped me to understand the poem. So before that, I was at a bit of a crossroads thinking, okay, I get the poem, I get the historical references, I get the influences and all the rest of it and a few of the language things, but what else is there to say? But it wasn't until I looked closely at the form and the structure that I really understood some of the key things that are going on in this poem. So if you're struggling with the poetry, if you're looking at poems and thinking, I don't know what to do here, read the poem to get the literal meaning, what is basically going on. Then look for language, by all means, look for similes and metaphors and, just important words that seem to have been deliberately chosen for effect. But beyond that, look at the form. Is it a sonnet? Is it any other specific form of poetry? Does it follow any rules and regulations for poetry? And further beyond that, look at the structure. How many verses are there? Where do the verses change? And does that seem to be important? All of these kind of things are the sort of things you could think about with structure. Are any words or phrases repeated? What about the rhythm in the piece? Is there internal rhyme? Is it free verse? Are there extra syllables in any lines? All of these kind of things. And even the use of punctuation. And looking at all of those smaller details will help you to think about the poem in a deeper way and perhaps unlock your understanding, as for me, looking at the sonnet form and its variations in this poem did, but B, will help you to hit the top marks in the exam because you're being insightful and perceptive and, above all, original and writing things that 90% of people don't write about. Now, do check out on my channel a previous video called Mr. Bruff's 2015 Sample Answers and Kindle Giveaway, because what I've done is I've completed past papers, written my own answers, and you can get your hands on those, and those will help you to look at my answers and think how I structure the answer and how the sort of things I write, how I embed quotations, all that kind of thing will help you. But I hope this has been a useful tip.